Welcome back to the Late Night Shift. My name is Lavender. Tonight, we're opening up a Lost Chapter. The Lost Chapters series will comprise of more bite-sized short-form content in the form of a list, rather than the bigger form chapters focused on one topic. So put on your tinfoil hat, because these aren't your typical grey aliens.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. What you're about. What you're about. What you're about.
November 28th, 1954, Caracas, Venezuela. Two men by the name of Jose Ponce and Gustavo Gonzalez reported to have been driving at 2 a.m. to a nearby town, when they noticed a 3-meter long, spherical glowing spaceship on the horizon. Stopping their car to investigate, they were dumbfounded to see a small hairy humanoid approaching them. Described as being 3 feet tall with spiky bristly hair and claw-like hands, the men tried to capture the creature, but it scratched at them and allegedly pushed one man back 15 feet with brute strength for its size, before escaping back to its craft. 2 similar creatures are said to have scurried back to the craft carrying potential soil and earth samples, but not before one of them shooting a thin beam of light at the men, blinding them before rapidly shooting off into the night sky. August 19, 1970, Penang, Malaysia. 6 schoolboys between the ages of 8 and 11 were playing near their school when they found themselves in a truly bizarre situation when a dinner plate-sized UFO landed directly near them. Astonished, the boys watched on as a group of tiny alien beings around 3 inches high wearing one-piece outfits with antennas on their heads emerged from their tiny silver craft. They surveyed the area as if lost, with little concern for the boys, before one of them tried to unsuccessfully capture one of the creatures before being knocked out by the tiny creature's ray gun. The other boys ran in a panic to get their teacher. However, upon their return, all that remained was a burn mark in the grass where the craft had been, along with the unconscious boy with a small red mark where he'd been shot. This event would go on to ignite an influx of strange incidents involving these small extraterrestrial beings around this time in Malaysia. August 18th, 1972, Bahia Blanca, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Many eyewitness accounts state between the summer of 1972 and the summer of 1973 to have witnessed an alien-type being with a head resembling the stone moai statues of Easter Island. One witness, a man named Eduardo Fernando Dedeo, was driving home late at night when he suddenly had radio interference. Stopping to fix the radio, he noticed what he thought was a hitchhiker standing on the opposite side of the road. The man was dressed in an overcoat with the collar turned up and a cap covering his head, though his face seemed somewhat longer than usual. Offering the man a ride, he entered the car without making a peep and sat down next to the Dedeo. Eduardo asked him if he was going to Bahia Blanca, but the response he got from the stranger was unintelligible. A short time later, the car lost all power and came to a sudden halt. Dedeo, flabbergasted, noticed a UFO glowing green and white in a nearby field. Turning his head to the hitchhiker in the passenger seat, he had completely vanished, leaving a broken door handle in his wake. The car suddenly came back to life at the same time. Petrified of what he'd just witnessed, Dedeo would go on to report the incident to the local police. The police would go on to receive several other similar reports that night, all in the same area. August 8, 1993, Victoria, Australia. Kelly Cahill and her husband Andrew were driving home in the early hours of the morning after a get-together with some friends when they encountered a spectacular sighting of a UFO over a paddock off to the side of the road. Earlier that night on their way to their friends, they had seen strange lights on the horizon but simply laughed it off. Stopping their car, Kelly recounted crossing the road to get a closer look at the UFO which had now landed. It's at this point her memory becomes hazy of the event, witnessing a sense of lost time, travelling several hundred metres down the road without their knowledge. Weeks that followed, she claimed to find strange marks on her body, including a small triangular incision below her navel. Around this time, Kelly would start having stomach pains and have night visitations from a tall black hooded alien-like figure with glowing red eyes. Through hypnosis, Kelly has stated she was able to unlock her missing time. Recounting the fateful night, Kelly initially saw one pitch black entity around 2 meters tall with glowing red eyes, quickly followed by a group of similar creatures. They approached her rapidly, as if gliding, splitting into groups of two, with one focusing on Kelly and her husband, and the second group focusing on a second car of people who had also stopped to get a look at the UFO. Kelly recalls screaming, "They are evil, they're going to kill us," before being struck in the stomach, and it is from this point her recollection ends. The other witnesses were tracked down by investigators, 2 women and a man giving similar accounts of the creature's appearance, though not recollecting the entity's red eyes. Through hypnosis, the women of the trio recounted being aboard the craft, and later having similar marks to Kelly left by the creatures. A third witness came forth anonymously, stating he had also received ligature marks after the encounter. January 7th, 1970, in Järvi, Finland. 2 men by the names of Arno Heinonen and Eskil Viho were skiing when they noticed a round metallic object descending on the horizon in the night sky. As the men investigated, the UFO hovered near them before a humanoid appeared holding a black box and a beam of light that emanated from the craft. The creature was described as very thin with a face pale as wax and a hooked nose. It wore a light green coverall with darker green knee-high boots, white gauntlets, and a conical metallic helmet shaped like that of an elf of fantasy tales. It is said that the craft was so close to the men that Heinonen was able to touch it with his ski pole. The entity pointed his black box at Heinonen, and a blinding, pulsating yellow light beamed upon him, followed by a red fog engulfing the area, and sparks showering around the skiers. The fog became thicker and thicker until moments later it had dissipated along with the craft into the night as if it was never there. Heinonen found he was unable to move his right leg, which had been closest to the beam. It was so severe that Viho had to carry his friend home. Over the following months, both men were plagued with psychological issues, with Viho suffering facial swelling, headaches and eye troubles. Heinonen is said to have had a severe memory loss along with constant pain and fatigue. He also described his urine as being black as coffee for 2 months following the encounter. Heinonen would later claim a series of contacts with a beautiful extraterrestrial woman, where she claimed that alien devices were implanted into his and Viho's foreheads during the 1970 encounter. After this we have to ponder, with so many eyewitness accounts, is there really something else out there other than us, in an endless universe, with just a grain of sand in a vast desert? All I know is, paranormal is the new normal.